picture this.
Yeah.
You see a color, but it's a color that has never, ever existed in the natural world. Like a completely unique flash of visual experience, something utterly new under the sun. Or, well, maybe not under the sun, more like thanks to some really clever science.
It really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? To experience something so fundamental like how we see everything, but in a way that's totally, well, unprecedented.
Well, hold on to your hats, everyone, because of that little thought experiment. It's actually reality now. Scientists have recently created, and get this, actually observed a brand new color. They've even named it Oolo.
Yeah.
And only 5 people on Earth have ever seen it.
That's right. And we're not just talking about, a slightly different shade of red or a new kind of pastel. This deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly how this Oolo came about. We'll explore why it's considered novel, maybe even impossible in nature, and get into some of those really mind-bending philosophical questions it brings up about color perception itself.
Definitely. And as always, we've dug into a whole stack of sources to guide us. We're looking at articles from places like the Times of India, University of Glasgow, Scientific American, found that one via TikTok, believe it or not. Also Nest Labs, Eyes on Eye Care, a really detailed PMC research paper, Wikipedia, Live Science, Smithsonian Magazine, Israel Hayom, Berkeley News, and even some pretty lively discussions over on Reddit from Uplifting News and A World News. Plus, there's a paper from a computer science department and another great piece from PMC PubMed Central about the limits of our own color awareness.
Quite the collection.
Yeah. Okay, so Oolo, how on earth did they do it? How do you show someone a completely new color?
Right. Well, to even start to get our heads around that, we probably need a quick refresher on how we see the colors we do know. So inside our eyes, we have these 3 types of cone cells. They're usually called L, M, and S.
Long, medium, short wavelengths.
Exactly. They're sensitive primarily to different wavelengths of light. Longer ones we generally see as red, medium as green, and shorter as blue. Our brain then takes the signals coming from these cones, the different combinations, how strongly they're firing, and it interprets them. That's what creates the whole rainbow of colors we see every day. It's sort of like a biological mixing board in our heads.
Okay, right. So it's like mixing primary colors, but it's light and our brain doing the mixing. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So where does the impossible color idea come from? What's the limitation?
The key thing is how these cones work together in the real world, naturally. It's basically impossible for a natural light source to activate just one type of cone, let's say, only the green-sensitive M cones without also triggering the others at least a little bit.
Okay.
There's always this overlap in sensitivity. What wavelengths trigger one cone often trigger another one too, and that overlap puts a kind of fundamental limit on the combinations our brains ever get to interpret from just, regular light out there.
Gotcha. So it's like trying to hear like the violin in an orchestra. You're always going to get some cello bleeding through, some flute maybe. So how do they get around that? It involved lasers, you mentioned?
Precisely, lasers. But really, really advanced laser tech combined with very sophisticated eye tracking systems. You can think of it almost like a microscopic light painter, aiming incredibly precise beams of light onto specific parts of the retina. And this let them do something truly groundbreaking: selectively stimulate only the M cones in the participant's eyes, completely bypassing the usual activation of the L and S cones.
Wow. That sounds unbelievably precise. So what did it look like, this isolated M cone? What was Oolo?
Well, according to the descriptions from the 5 people who saw it, Oolo is a vibrant blue-green color. But the really crucial part seems to be its saturation. They described it as having this unprecedented saturation. A blue-green unlike anything they'd ever seen naturally, somehow more intense, purer.
More blue-green than blue-green. Huh. It's hard to even imagine that kind of experience.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the sources use different words: novel, impossible, alien, Martian even. What's the best way for us to think about a color like Oolo?
Yeah, that's a good point. The University of Glasgow paper actually offers a really useful perspective here. While those more dramatic terms like impossible or forbidden definitely grab your attention, novel is probably the better term in, scientific and philosophical circles. The reason is that the actual status of these colors, like, are they fundamentally impossible or just something nature hasn't produced? That's still kind of a philosophical debate. Calling them impossible might be jumping the gun a bit, depending on how you think about color itself.
Okay, that makes sense. Don't call it impossible if maybe the conditions just haven't been right yet. So why do some theories suggest certain colors are impossible for us normally? Like reddish green or yellowish blue?
Ah, right. That takes us to the opponent process theory of color vision. This theory suggests our color perception works on these opposing neural signals. Think of red versus green and yellow versus blue. They're like pairs. The idea is that a single neuron pathway can't signal both red and green at the exact same time. One signal sort of cancels out the other.
Like a light switch. It's either on red or on green, but not both.
Exactly. It's a biological either situation at that neural level. That's why we don't typically walk around seeing things that look both red and green simultaneously, or yellow and blue.
Okay, I'm with you. So how does Olo fit in, or I guess not fit in?
Well, theoretically, Olo, because it comes from this super specific isolated M-cone stimulation, it falls outside that classic color space defined by the opponent process. It's not being built from the usual red, green, blue signals being balanced in the normal way. And maybe more practically, Olo is novel because you just can't create it with a physical light source out in the world that would only hit the M-cones. Any light strong enough to really activate those M-cones, the greenish ones, is also going to strongly activate the L-cones, the reddish ones, because of that spectral overlap we talked about. They're just too close together in sensitivity.
Right, so it's blocked by both the brain's wiring and the physics of light. Wow. Now, Olo isn't the very first time this idea of impossible or weird colors has come up, is it? Our sources mention a few other types.
That's right. There are a few categories people talk about. First, you have those forbidden colors we just discussed, reddish-green, yellowish-blue. There have been some, let's say, less mainstream experiments trying to induce these, using flickering lights or special techniques to keep an image perfectly still on the retina. Some people in those studies reported seeing, well, something. Fleeting sensations, weird textures, maybe hinting at those forbidden combos. But it's really hard to get consistent results, and honestly, that line of research hasn't been a major focus.
So tantalizing hints, but nothing solid like Olo. What about chimerical colors? That sounds pretty wild.
Yeah, chimerical colors are generated in the brain after looking at successive colors, like after images, but maybe more structured. Examples people give are things like Stygian blue, described as a blue that's somehow as dark as black, but still clearly blue, or self-luminous red, a red that seems to glow on its own. These aren't a direct response to light hitting your eye right then, but more like artifacts of how your visual system recovers or adapts after stimulation.
Okay, so more like temporary illusions our own brain creates. Got it. And the last one mentioned was imaginary colors.
Exactly. Those are purely theoretical. They exist in the mathematical models we use to map out color spaces, but you can't actually produce them with any real physical light source that our eyes could see. Hypergreen is the classic example, a green that's mathematically greener than any green light we can actually perceive.
Okay, so Olo feels really different then. It wasn't an illusion or just math. They actually made it happen technologically. This whole thing really pushes you into some deep questions, doesn't it? Like if someone sees Olo, does that color truly exist, even if it doesn't occur naturally?
That's exactly where it gets philosophically very interesting. You have ideas like sense data theory. That theory would basically say if you have a direct perceptual experience of something like seeing Olo, then there is some kind of mental thing, a sense datum, that really has that color property at that moment. And there's a philosopher, Riccardo Manzotti, who has this view that perception actually creates reality in that instant. So if you perceive Olo, then for you, right then, Olo absolutely exists.
Wow, okay, that's a trip. The act of seeing literally brings it into being, at least for the seer.
Kind of, yeah. And then you have the whole issue of how do we even talk about or understand a novel color experience if it's fundamentally unlike anything else? It pushes the boundaries of our language for color. And as the Glasgow paper points out, whether you think novel colors are genuinely possible or impossible really depends on your basic theory of what color is. Is it out there in the objectivism, or is it more in the mind of the perceiver, subjectivism?
It's like that old tree falling in the forest question, but for color. And, related to this, one of our sources, that PMC PubMed Central article, talks about how limited our awareness is even of the normal colors around us every day. How does that fit in?
Oh, that study is fascinating. They used VR, I think, and showed that when we're actively looking around doing things, we're often completely blind to pretty major color changes happening in our peripheral vision. Like, a big part of your visual field could be slowly drained of color, turned to grayscale, and you might not even notice.
No way.
Yeah. It really highlights that our feeling of seeing this rich, detailed, colorful world all the time, well, it's partly an illusion. Our actual color perception is surprisingly limited and depends heavily on where we're focusing our attention. It's a good reminder that even our grasp of normal color isn't as complete as we might think.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what else we're missing, right? Maybe there are subtle Olos all around us, just outside our attentional spotlight.
That really puts the newness of Olo in an interesting light. If we're not even fully processing the colors already there. Wow. Okay, let's get back to the tech. This Oz device that made Olo possible. Sounds like sci-fi.
It pretty much is cutting-edge stuff. The research paper and sources like Hayom describe it as this complex setup. Mirrors, lasers, sophisticated optics, all very precisely aligned. Its whole job is basically to deliver these super accurate, controlled pulses of laser light right onto individual photoreceptor cells in the retina.
Painting with light at the cellular level.
Hmm.
Crazy. Now, we talked about how hard it is to isolate the M cones. Can you elaborate on that challenge again and how they cracked it?
Sure. As Eyes on Eye Care noted, the big problem is that spectral overlap. The range of light the M cones respond to overlaps a lot with the L cones. The number tossed around is about 85%. 85% of the light that activates M also activates L to some degree.
Okay, yeah, that's huge overlap.
It is, and that's why normal light can't do it. Now, previous attempts to isolate M cones had only managed to hit like 1 or 2 cones at a time, very tiny scale. The massive breakthrough with this Oz device was managing that selective stimulation across a whole population of M cones simultaneously, enough of them to actually generate a noticeable unified color sensation for the person.
Ah, okay, so scale was key. Not just hitting one cell, but enough to send a clear, new signal to the brain. The PMC paper also mentioned these color matching experiments they did. What did those show about Olo?
Yeah, those were critical for proving how unique Olo really is. What they did was, they showed the participants who'd seen Olo a square of this new color. Then they asked them to try and match it using either a standard projector or a special laser setup that could mix pure wavelengths with white light. And the key finding: the participants consistently had to add white light to the Olo sample, essentially desaturating it before they could get anywhere close to matching it with even the purest single wavelengths of light we can normally see, the ones right at the edge of our natural color perception, the gamut.
Whoa!
It's really strong evidence that Olo lies outside the boundaries of our natural color space, like trying to plot a point on a map that's actually off the edge of the paper.
It just doesn't fit in the standard model. Wow. The paper also said that even though it was totally new, people could still recognize images or watch short videos shown in Olo against a red background.
Yeah, that's another fascinating detail. It suggests that while the color sensation itself was novel, the brain's basic visual processing machinery recognizing shapes, seeing movement, could still handle it. It wasn't so utterly alien that it just broke the visual system. The researchers did mention, technical challenges, a tiny bit of light leakage maybe to other cones, but they felt the accuracy was definitely high enough to successfully show this novel color.
Amazing. And just quickly, the name Olo, did they say why they picked that?
The papers and the articles we looked at just state that the researchers formally named it Olo. There doesn't seem to be any specific reason given, no etymology or anything like that shared in the material. Sometimes you just need a label for something new.
Fair enough. Olo it is. A unique name for a unique experience seen by, 5 people? So, okay, let's try and wrap this up. Scientists basically hack the eye with super precise lasers. They managed to stimulate just one type of cone cell, the M cones, and created this experience of Olo, a blue-green color, but way more saturated than anything found in nature.
That's the core of it. By directly tweaking those photoreceptors, bypassing the usual overlaps, they've shown us a color that exists outside our normal gamut, outside the standard models of color vision. And, this kind of precise control, it could have implications down the line. Maybe for understanding colorblindness better, or even developing targeted therapies, or just learning more about how different cones contribute to vision overall.
This whole deep dive into Olo, it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does creating a new color like this actually tell us about the potential, and maybe the limits, of our own perception? If technology can unlock totally new visual experiences like this, what other sensory frontiers might be out there just waiting for us to find the key?
That really is the big, thought-provoking question Olo leaves us with, isn't it? It's a stark reminder that our senses, as amazing as they are, might have hidden depths. And our understanding of perception itself, still very much a work in progress. It makes you wonder, what else could we perceive if we just had the right tools, the right technology to access it?
Absolutely. Well, if you, the listener, are intrigued by all this, the science of color, the idea of impossible colors, the specific research behind Olo, we definitely encourage you to dig into the sources. We'll have them listed in the show notes, or you can just search online for Olo color research. It's a truly mind-bending, eye-opening field, and this discovery feels like it might just be the start of something pretty big in how we think about seeing the world.